So I'm on a walk out here in Humboldt County along the Eel River, and thinking about a conference I'll be attending next week at Harvard Divinity School on Rudolf Steiner. It's 100 years since his death this past March or April, and Harvard is hosting this conference to bring scholars, philosophers, and anthroposophists together to discuss Steiner's work, its enduring relevance, some of its challenges, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's surprising to have a conference on Steiner at Harvard Divinity School. His work presents a lot of challenges to academic researchers and scholars and philosophers because, well, not only because it challenges scientific materialism, which, plenty of us are doing that, but he also offers an alternative that is extremely well developed, not only theoretically but practically. He's responsible for starting Waldorf schools, which I believe is the largest private school system or community of schools in the world today. Biodynamic agriculture, and other initiatives that continue to endure and bear fruit for people and communities, individuals and communities today. But the way that he views the cosmos and the human place within it is quite foreign and even shocking to, the usual refined intellectual mentality nowadays. Even if you question materialism, your spiritual views might, be a little bit more vague. Steiner is very specific about the nature of the spiritual world and the activities of spiritual beings. And so a lot of what he has to say, of course, rests upon or stems from his clairvoyant capacities. And not many of us have such capacities, and many of us might even be highly skeptical that such capacities could be possessed by anyone. Now, of course, Steiner did try to develop various methods to assist others in the cultivation of these powers. Some of them he developed himself, and others he's just drawing from the history of esoteric practice. And he, through various meditative techniques, for example, the life or daily review before bed every night as a preparation for the life review that he says, and many esoteric traditions and spiritual traditions say will occur when we die. The exercise is basically just to relive your day right before you go to sleep at night backwards, and try to remember in as much detail every experience you had, because the idea of this meditative practice is that, our consciousness is, as we are incarnate in this particular body in this lifetime, sort of wound around into time by the, diurnal rotation of the earth and the monthly cycles of the moon and the annual cycles of the earth around the sun and so on. And we get sort of dizzy through this winding, and that if we can cultivate our memory as an organ of perception by rewinding on our day, each day before sleep, we might help prepare ourselves for an even more intense reversal of sorts that will occur when we die. And we, as Steiner says, and again many other esoteric traditions, we relive life from the perspective, though, of everyone we related to. And so that life review, the tableau of our biography, could be a heaven or a hell, or some mix of the two, depending on how we treated others, right? So we get to relive our lives from the perspective of all of those that we affected. And this practice helps us prepare for death by cultivating a kind of memory that's not just autobiographical in the sense of remembering this life, but our embeddedness in multiple cycles of life or incarnations. And the whole idea of reincarnation, of course, it has an ancient pedigree across not just Eastern but Western traditions, from Pythagoras in ancient Greece to some of the Jewish mystical concepts of reincarnation, Gilgul, I believe, in Hebrew, and also early church fathers like Origen supported some form of transmigration, and so it's not uncommon, but I think is perceived as at least woo-woo, if not totally incredible and embarrassing as an idea by most contemporary intellectuals and academics, despite the Division of Perceptual Studies at University of Virginia, where Ed Kelly and colleagues are carrying on the work of people like Ian Stevenson, who took reincarnation very seriously. So there's some academic basis for research into these sorts of things, but Steiner just blows the lid off of our modern materialist or skeptical imaginations and challenges us to take seriously these ideas and much broader context for our human existence than what we in the secular West have grown used to. And so, this is Harvard Divinity School. They're interested in questions of meaning and ultimate significance of our existence. But Steiner's not just doing theology. He's trying to cultivate experiential modalities which would allow us to intensify our consciousness. And there's a lot of talk nowadays about expansion of consciousness, but on Barfield's account of the evolution of human consciousness, it's not that we need to move towards expansion so much as recognize that our evolution to our current form of more or less materialist, secular ego identity is itself a contraction and a forgetting of a much more porous form of participation mystique, you could say, for primal human beings, that our modern consciousness is a contraction from the more universal, porous, participatory consciousness of primal people. And so when we think about the further evolution of consciousness, from an anthroposophical or from Steiner's point of view, it's not so much that we want to just expand our consciousness. We want to, as I said before, intensify it, which is to say, recollect what we've lost, but also maintain our sense of individual freedom and wide awake consciousness as individual spirits that may not have been present for the primal participatory mode, which was more of an immersion, a boundaryless experience of unity, right? And so the anthroposophist Owen Barfield, also an Inkling, friend of J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and others, Charles Williams, Barfield would talk about original and final participation, and it's a bit like Ken Wilber's pre-trans fallacy, but for those of you familiar with integral theory, not identical, but just as a touch point, original participation was unconscious in the sense of not including any sense of individual freedom. What modernity has won is that sense of individual freedom, but at the cost of cutting us off and alienating us entirely from nature, from one another, and even from ourselves in some significant sense. So final participation would be a recovery of what was lost, an awareness of our co-creative role as participants in a cosmic process, our status as sub-creators, to use Tolkien's term. It's a recovery of that, but maintaining the hard-won individual freedom and distinct consciousness of ourselves as spirits, and not a complete immersion in the world spirit. There's something for Steiner about evolution that seeks deeper individuation. And so that's his picture. And I'm going to be talking a little bit during my presentation at Harvard Divinity School about how Whitehead's cosmology and metaphysics helps to provide a bridge to link between scientific and philosophical discourse, and some of Steiner's more esoteric ideas. So you'll be able to tune in. I'll share a link to the conference website. It will be streamed live, but anyone in the Boston area should try to join. And I'll be sharing a recording of my remarks here afterwards.